Hi, welcome to Accounting Standards and Regulations. My name is Peter Wells and I'll be your subject coordinator this semester. And if you're trying to get hold of me, you can try my office phone number 9514-3581. However, I'm often away from my office, and maybe a better strategy is to send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. That way we don't actually have to be online at exactly the same time. Assisting me this semester, I have a number of tutors. This will include Charles Lowe and Margot Davini. Their contact details are on UTS Online. In terms of completing the subject, I please encourage you to log on to UTS Online as soon as possible and to download and read the subject outline. You'll also see on UTS Online we have the weekly material, and this includes the overheads, plus a lot of supplementary material which is identified in the overheads. The tutorial material, which you're required to complete for tutorials, and a number of self-study questions. The textbooks that you require this semester will be the Financial Reporting Handbook 2020. This is published by Wiley, and it's available as a value pack with the text Financial Reporting 3rd edition. Please note that we have moved on from the 2nd edition, and this is necessary to catch up with some recently issued accounting standards such as AASB's 15 and 16, which are concerned with revenue recognition and with leases. Also supporting the Wiley textbooks, there is a publisher package or plugin which is called Wiley Plus, and we'll use that for weekly quizzes which are there to provide you with some insights as to whether you understand the material covered in class, as well as an online quiz which you're required to complete, which is worth 20 marks of your assessment. Please note that because I have assigned some learning material in week 0, the tutorials will start in week 1, but obviously this is addressing the week 0 material. And you'll see that's a common feature, that the tutorial material is always lagged by 1 week. Financial reporting regulation is something that impacts all companies, and there are an extensive number of parties that are in organisations that are involved in the setting the regulations. Most obviously, we have the International Financial Reporting Standards, which are issued by the IASB, and I would encourage you to go to their website just to see what they are, who they are, what they do. The standards in Australia are reissued by the Australian Accounting Standards Board, and they have weekly updates as well as all the accounting standards and some of the supporting material. So I would encourage you to log onto that website, and not only that, but also to sign up for the weekly updates. If you're going to be an accountant on an ongoing basis, you need to stay on top of the accounting standards on an ongoing basis. There are also a number of professional bodies who have some great resources. These include Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, CPA Australia, and ACCA. I'll be fairly agnostic, but visit all their websites and see which one offers the best for you. The large accounting firms also have a range of resources which are incredibly useful. I've picked on Deloitte's because I first started my career as an auditor at one of the antecedents of Deloitte's. And Deloitte's is actually pretty useful because they actually have a wonderful resource covering accounting standards, which is under the web label IAS Plus. And they also have available online a standard form report. This is produced as a PDF document, and it shows an annual report, but it's cross-referenced to the relevant accounting standards which dictate the form of the report. It's really useful if you want to see how the disclosures arising from an accounting standard appear in a financial report, and I would encourage you to download it, but keep it as a PDF electronic document rather than printing it out. That way you can use the search function, and it's really useful for seeing how a particular accounting standard appears or impacts a financial report. The website also has a number of e-learning resources which I would encourage you to access, to look at and to think about. In terms of this subject, I think the first thing I'd like to point out is that I'm not here to teach you the individual accounting standards. Rather, what I'm here to do is to try and teach you to be able to read, understand, and apply the accounting and financial accounting and reporting standards for yourselves. This isn't as daunting as you might think it is, because it's facilitated by an enormous consistency that exists across the financial accounting and reporting standards. And you'll see that we utilize this in terms of packaging the accounting standards and presenting them. Because one thing that will appear quite early is that the accounting issues, problems, are common across different accounting standards, and the solutions are shared as well. And you'll see that there's enormous similarities across accounting standards such as accounting for inventories, accounting for property, plant, and equipment, accounting for intangible assets. And if we can use that, it's going to make it much easier for us to understand how accounting standards are constructed and what they're likely to tell us to do. What you should identify from this is that central to achieving this course objective is the sequential presentation of material. It's like building a house. You do it from the foundations up, and you lay one layer of bricks at a time. What this means is that it's going to be very important to stay up to date, because what you'll see is that we start off with relatively simple standards and then move on to the more complex ones, and we use the principles or the ideas behind the simple to help us to understand the more complex standards. It also has the benefit of presenting financial accounting and reporting standards as cohesive building blocks, not isolated islands of regulation. And that, I think, allows us to much more critically understand the accounting standards. It also makes the volume of learning more manageable. And if you want to be an accountant, you need to understand this body of regulation. So you're going to have to develop some strategies to do this. Also, being able to read accounting standards by yourself, that's simply going to be reflective of the professional environment that you are aspiring to. There are a number of consequences which flow from this philosophy. First and foremost, you must complete the topics on a timely basis. There's no point in trying to move from topic 3 into topic 4 unless you've already done topic 3. We build the knowledge weekly, and unless you have a solid foundation moving into the next week, then I'm afraid you're going to be building your house, your knowledge, on the sand, and that's just not going to have a happy ending. Critically, it also means that you can't wait till assessment week to try and do the material. There simply isn't enough time either to complete the material or to gain the necessary understandings. Please also note that I am cognizant that in the past, some students have tried to wait for the subject hints to try and work out what topics they're going to do. So please note, I'm not going to tell you what exam topics are in the exam. I'll simply describe the exam without telling you the exact topics, and that avoids this moral hazard. So you are going to have to learn all the material in the subject, not just the topics that I tell you are in the final exam. So there's an issue there, and I'm warning you in advance or giving you advance notice that I am not going to tell you whether LESIS is in the final exam or not, so you can decide whether to study that topic or not. I'm not going there. Now, we have a relatively short period of time in a teaching session to work through all the materials, so we need to start running. And I've presented you with some online material to look at before we actually get into the weekly material. And I think this sets the frame for being able to read and understand accounting standards. First and foremost, if you're going to read and understand accounting standards, you need to understand why they're necessary, and that requires us to understand what are the functions of general purpose financial reporting. We also need to understand who provides that regulation. What's the regulatory framework that we operate within Australia? So I've identified two short pieces of work which you are required to read, topic 1 and topic 2. I think they're only about 15 pages or 20 pages each, but they very much set the scene or the context within which financial reporting regulation is developed. These are foundation, and they will help you to understand why the regulation takes the form that it does and where it comes from. There are also questions based on this material which are required to be undertaken in week 1 tutorials. It's a trying semester. There's a lot of material to be covered, but it is going to be one of the foundation courses which establishes your competency as a professional accountant. I think that if we work hard and consistently together, we can do this successfully, and that's going to be the recipe for success in this subject.